Hello, sippers. I'm Demetrius.
I'm Renee.
And I'm Martia.
And this is Sipping on Wine, a true crime podcast. Hey, ladies. How are you
Hey,
doing?
folks.
Hey, ladies. Hey, sippers.
Hey, sippers. For another episode.
All right. We got a new week coming. A new week. So if you are new to our podcast, although we are a true crime podcast, we also discuss many other topics. So please make sure you keep listening after our case discussion, because we have a few more other segments you don't want to miss out on.
And
yes, thank you for
juicy.
Okay, and thank you for tuning in. So, all right, ladies, let's tell the sippers what we're sipping on today.
Ooh, tell them.
Okay, so before we dive into this week's episode, our drink of the week is called Haitian Tropical Rum Punch. And I found this on TikTok and decided to share with my ladies. So.
You said TikTok? That's where it came from?
I found it on TikTok and I had to share.
Well, I'm glad you shared it because it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And also, I just want to let the sippers know this is a fruity drink. So please be cautious and sip slowly, okay? Because rum is nothing to play with. And we will list all the ingredients on our Instagram page. So before we begin, speaking on today's true crime, we want to acknowledge the people that these crimes have left a lasting impact on. We also want to send our heartfelt sympathy to not only the survivors, but also the loved ones and friends of all the victims we're about to discuss. So, ladies and sippers, today's episode is going to take us to Tonasket, Washington, where infidelity, jealousy, and a murder for hire plot caused a small town to question who did it and why. In this case of Lacey Hirst-Pavek.
I'm ready.
Lacey Hirst-Pavek was born Lacey Hirst in 1976. She is from Tonasket, Washington, a small town that is south of the Canadian border, where everybody knows everybody. The Hirst family is a very powerful family within the community. They own a popular restaurant in the area, and I learned they own most of the town. Lacey attended Tonasket High School and struggled making friends as she grew up, mostly because of her spoiled rich girl attitude, and no one wanted to hang out with her because of it. Until one day, she met a young man named Brandon, and the two became a couple. The pair later got married and had 2 children together, but one day they decided to end the marriage because they grew apart. And a major factor was the constant fighting. When Lacey and Brandon divorced, she made it her mission to get sole custody of the children. Shortly thereafter, she would get a job working for a car dealership as a finance manager. The newly divorced Lacey would also find love again. She would meet a guy named Daniel Pavek, aka Danny. Now, you ladies know I love to find backgrounds on individuals, but there was none to be found on Danny, except right. I love my details, but except that he was born on July 20th, 1978, and Danny was the hot, good-looking bachelor of the town. He was someone who all the women wanted, but he only had eyes for Lacey. He got along with everyone around him. He was a great fit with Lacey and her kids. The two would go on to date for almost 8 years before getting married. Lacey was living the life she always wanted. She had her family, career, the house, and the money. Danny and Lacey both loved spending quality time with family and friends, especially those closest to them, one of whom was Tansy Mathis. She was a close friend of Danny's. The two knew each other from high school, but Tansy lived a lifestyle kind of on the wild side, unlike that of Danny and Lacey Pavek. She was known to be a drug dealer. In the court records that I found online, Tansy was not just any dealer. She was a methamphetamine dealer. Okay, y'all. She had a whole title.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
She was well known around town to be a big party girl and bringing the party wherever she went. Tansy Mathis was also known to sometimes hang around a lot of people, but one in particular was a young and beautiful 25-year-old woman who she had recently met at a party named Michelle Kitterman. So I'm going to dive into Michelle Kitterman because she plays a role in this case too.
Okay.
Michelle Kitterman was born on May 12, 1983, as a premature baby. She arrived 20 minutes before her twin sister, Danielle Kitterman. Michelle was a very active child. She was always involved in plays, talent shows, and the band. According to family and friends, she was known for being the life of the party. She was a girly girl, but was also a dirt bike riding kind of girl. But it would be her beauty that would light up any room. It was her beauty that earned her many modeling jobs, and she could have been a model, but she chose to have her son Nathan and raise him instead. Michelle began working odd jobs such as catering and bartending to make ends meet until she landed a job at a clinic as a receptionist. Although Michelle was a great mom and a hard worker, she also partied just as equally and was known to use drugs at times. This lifestyle will also connect her with people who cared less about her well being. But let's dive back into the story. In November of 2008, when Tansy arrived at a party with Michelle, Michelle would catch the attention of one person in particular, Danny Pavek. Shortly after being introduced by Tansy, the pair began seeing each other. Danny would begin lying to Lacey, telling her he was out with friends. Meanwhile, he was really carrying on a hot and steamy secret love affair with Michelle Kitterman. Lacey did not have any clue about what her husband was doing because he was a social guy. She was used to him being out late with friends and at parties. After secretly seeing each other for only a few months, things would appear to be going good for Danny and Michelle. But in February 2009, an unexpected twist would happen. Lacey would be told by a friend that Danny was having an affair. Remember, y'all, they live in a small town, so people gossip in those small
Everybody knows
towns.
everybody's business.
Right. And
Yeah.
I used to want to live, side note,
Ooh,
I used to want to
really?
live in a small town where everybody
Hmm.
knew everybody, like, hey, how you doing? But then I
Okay.
started remembering, I'm kind of secretive. I don't want
I
everybody
was
in my
about to say
business.
you until people start
But
knowing your business, and then it's a problem.
okay, yeah, I
You
got an
know?
issue. But let's dive back in the story. After Lacey heard about this alleged affair, she becomes very upset, determined to see if the rumors were true. Lacey decided to confront Danny about this alleged affair. So, ladies and sippers, you will not believe this. Danny shocked me with his response because most men don't respond to those type of allegations. But he confessed to Lacey that the rumors were true, and
Mhm.
he dropped a big bombshell on Lacey.
Ooh, what?
He tells her that Michelle is pregnant. So I was like, oh, you confess that? Most men be like, no, no. Mm-mm.
Right, right.
Where you hear that
Mhm.
from? But Lacey was not happy about the new information and instantly got upset with Tansy Mathis. Now, you're not mad at your husband, but you mad at
So that's the
Tansy.
crazy part. You mad at the other person. You should
Right.
be mad at your husband. Like, excuse me.
Right. And it was noticed she was upset with her because she was the one that introduced Danny and Michelle.
Okay, well, I would be mad at her too then, but
Right.
still your
But
husband
if
too.
she didn't introduce them for the purpose of getting romantically involved, that still would not be her
Right.
friend's fault. That's still weird to get mad at
Exactly.
her. Like, she didn't tell them what to do unless she did, right? So that's
Mm.
terrible. Wow.
That was, check this out. Lacey had threatened to leave Danny if he didn't end the affair. But Michelle was also pressing Danny to leave Lacey because she wanted him all to herself. So Michelle told him that he had to make a choice between her or Lacey. And from my research, I learned that Danny was actually taking time out to decide who he wanted to be with.
So he had a choice. He was
The
able to
fact
make
that
the
these
choice.
females were giving
Child,
him an option is so sickening. Like, come
child,
on now.
really?
This is
Like
Right.
terrible.
he got to make the choice.
Right. He had to make the decision to either stay married in a well known family with a wife and kids that weren't his own, but he loved them the same, or continue a relationship with this young, beautiful 25-year-old who was pregnant with his unborn child. I guess that was like a heavy weighted decision, right? And right before he was about to reveal to Lacey and Michelle who he wanted, just 12 hours later, a decision would be made for him. On March 1st, 2009, everything would take a dark turn. Michelle Kitterman would be found dead on the side of the road with 39 stab wounds.
Oh my gosh, 39. Wow.
That's overkill. That's terrible. We already know what that means 99 times.
Right. So the Okanagan Sheriff's Office would receive a call about the discovery of a body found just 30 miles from Tonasket, Washington. The area where the body was found was very remote and rural. When the investigators arrived, there was a body of a young woman with small puncture wounds in her abdomen, her neck, and back. She was sitting up on top of her clothes against a fence. They could tell she was stabbed by something, but what the object was, they didn't know. The investigators could also see there was some type of struggle by the amount of blood found, and there were tire tracks left at the scene in the mud and snow. From examining the body at the site, they noticed she had a tattoo and quickly took a picture of it to help identify the body and sent out a Jane Doe alert. They were immediately alerted that there was a missing persons report filed. Someone had reported a young female being missing. The description given matched that of the woman found at the scene. The victim's mother, Tracy Kitterman, was notified and she was able to identify the body found was her daughter, Michelle Kitterman. Now the manhunt was on for whoever wanted Michelle Kitterman dead and what was used to kill her. Once an autopsy report came back, investigators discovered that Michelle was 12 weeks pregnant and she had been stabbed 39 times. The weapon used at the crime scene was an ice pick. They also discovered there were several clusters of stab wounds around the abdomen area,
Oh, that's
especially
just evil. Ooh.
right, especially in the uterus area where the puncture wounds appeared to be larger. This murder was not random. This murder was personal. Someone not only wanted Michelle dead, but they wanted the baby dead as well. Investigators began asking around who would want Michelle dead. Her mother quickly named Danny Pavek because he was Michelle's boyfriend and he was also married. That could have been his motive to get rid of Michelle. But he had an alibi. He was with his wife the night of the murder. So next up in questioning was Lacey. Investigators asked her what she knew. She told them she knew that Danny was having an affair and Michelle was having a baby. She was very upset and didn't like it, but she denied having anything to do with Michelle's murder. During her questioning, Lacey was quick to name Tansy Mathis as a possible suspect, claiming that Tansy believed that Michelle was going to snitch on her for dealing drugs and that she was probably a police informant, but there were no further leads until the investigators would receive a call. This would be the call needed to gain a lead in the case. A call would be made from a guy named Brian Holman. He told them that he would talk, but he wanted protection because he was in fear of losing his life for sharing details of what happened. He told them a woman was recently murdered and she was killed with an ice pick. The investigators were in shock. They knew instantly he had to know who killed Michelle because they never disclosed to the public the murder weapon that was used. Brian also told them all about Tansy Mathis, explaining how she was a drug dealer and hired men to take care of people who owed her money or threatened her business. And he was one of the enforcers who worked for Mathis. Believing that Michelle was going to snitch on her, Tansy had recruited another person who goes by the name of Hollywood to help kill Michelle. Brian didn't stop there with the names. He also told them about a guy named David Richards. He was the one who provided the murder weapon, the ice pick. Now that Brian provided
Spilling
the
all
name,
the tea. Oh my goodness.
okay, he just talking. So now that Brian provided all of the three possible suspects, Tansy, Hollywood, and David Richards, investigators needed to find out who this Hollywood person was. So after searching thoroughly through a criminal database, Hollywood's name would come back as Brent Phillips. Now the investigation was underway and arrests were made. Tansy Mathis and Hollywood were arrested first, but Hollywood decided to talk just 4 days after being arrested. I found out through my research for him that he started talking because he didn't get paid like he was promised. Okay.
That's usually how
So,
it happens.
right. So allegedly, he gave important details of what happened on the night that Michelle went missing. The events goes like this. Michelle was lured out of her house by Hollywood, David Richardson, and Tansy by asking if she wanted to go to the casino with them. And she didn't hesitate to respond. She told them, okay. They all pulled off. They go up a dirt road and pull over on the side of the road. And all three of them began beating Michelle and pull her out of the car. Tansy began instantly using the ice pick in the abdomen area multiple times. And then she hands over the weapon to Hollywood, telling him to finish the job. He does so by stabbing her over 30 times. So days later, they were able to arrest David Richardson and charge him for Michelle's murder. So y'all, Michelle had no way of getting out of that. Okay, three people to one,
Yeah.
you weren't going
Wow.
anywhere,
Terrible.
right? But after listening to Hollywood's story, investigators were curious why Tansy wanted to target just Michelle's lower stomach area. Hollywood would also tell them that someone rented the car Tansy used, but he didn't know who. After tracking down the rental information to match The day of the murder, the person who rented the car for Tansy was, y'all ready for this? Lacey Pavek.
Wow.
I was waiting on you to say her name and just taking a guess in my head. I figured it was going to lead back to her.
So after questioning those around Lacey, like coworkers and friends, people started talking, y'all, telling them what Lacey said. She wanted Michelle to just disappear. She wanted her to go away. She wished she would just die or something like that. Okay, so the friends and coworkers started chit-chatting about her, like, oh, hold on. So others thought she was just venting, but the investigators said, oh no, she a suspect. So on March 31st, 2009, Lacey Hirst-Pavek was arrested. Now, all four suspects were arrested and bonds were set, but Lacey was able to post bond. Okay, y'all, she got out. She had her bail money ready because that family is wealthy.
That's usually how it goes. Yep.
So check this out. The other's bail amount was set at $1 million. And guess what Lacey's amount was set at? $25,000 because of her family name. Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And it was because of her family name, and the judge didn't feel like she was a flight risk. 25.
Okay. A flight risk. Okay. If you have access and money.
Right. You own half the town, I guess, you're guarded and protected. So the Kitterman family was very livid at how she was able to be out freely and not locked up like the others. So the three of the four who were arrested and booked went through separate trials, and all of them were charged for the murder of Michelle Kitterman. First up was Brett Phillips, aka Hollywood. He was charged with first-degree murder and first-degree manslaughter, but he struck a plea deal for testifying against the other three, having his sentence reduced. He was sentenced to just 26 years in prison. David Richards was charged with murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the first degree. He was sentenced to 26 years in prison. Up next was Tansy Mathis, y'all. She was charged with first degree aggravated murder and first degree manslaughter for the death of the baby, and first degree kidnapping and concealing physical evidence. So Tansy was sentenced to life without parole, which she deserved because you plotted with Lacey, okay? So now here comes the trial. The Kitterman family waited weeks upon weeks for it to happen. On November 1st, 2010, the trial of Lacey Hirst-Pavek was set to begin. The prosecutors set the tone, claiming Lacey wanted the woman who was pregnant with her husband's child gone. The defense claimed that Lacey was probably upset and jealous, but wouldn't want Michelle killed. So, okay, let me break this case down because it got a little lengthy. So Lacey masterminded the whole thing and used Tansy Mathis. She kept telling Tansy how she needed to get rid of Michelle because she was a snitch and planned to go to the police about Tansy's drug dealing. So Tansy believed that story, but Lacey had other plans. She explained to her how Michelle was also having an affair with her husband and she was pregnant with his child and she wanted her gone. So Lacey rented a car and gave Tansy $500 to do what she must do to make it all go away, basically. So Lacey's defense attorney said Lacey was only helping out a friend to move. That was her story. That's why she rented the car. No. But it would be phone records that showed a timeline of how the night's events played out. It pinged all the calls and all the texts, and all of it led to one main person, Lacey. She was the main contact person the whole day of the murder from the beginning to the end. What the defense team wasn't expecting was a testimony of Lacey to investigators. She asked if they could stop the recording during her interrogation. And she said, I quote, yes, I wanted the baby dead and I wanted Michelle gone, end quote. So the investigators used that as testimony evidence during the trial. When her husband was called to testify by the prosecutors, guess what this man decided to do? He used his spousal privilege, y'all.
Oh, so you can't talk because, yeah.
So let me share this real quick. Before the trial, do you know this man was on the run for 3 weeks? Why are you on the run?
Because he's guilty.
I think he was part of it, but nobody snitched on him as being part of it. Because I was like, wait a minute, why you on the run if you didn't do anything for 3
That's
weeks?
what I was wondering. I thought maybe I missed something.
I just want to throw that in there that they didn't disclose it. I just had to find research on it because I didn't even know they had a warrant out for his arrest till I started reading. I was like, what? The husband was
Maybe
on the
because
run.
because he knew that he was staying with his wife or whatever, and then they had to get rid of the other person, and the baby, because that'll just be a distraction or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So I'm sure he probably knew. He had to. I'm sure.
And he used his spousal privilege. So I think he knew a lot more than he didn't even say. Like, you didn't even want to say nothing. So you knew. But anyway, let me get back to the story, sippers. So on November,
he felt like he owed her that. Like, okay, I'm the reason why all this stuff happened.
Oh, now that could be. Okay. So he felt guilty and was like, man, let me just not say nothing because.
Right.
Yeah, but why would you run though?
Right, for 3 weeks.
Yeah, like that's extreme, especially if I don't know. It's something behind that though.
To the point they had to put a warrant out for your arrest. That's crazy. So, ladies, on November 10th, 2010, a year and a half later after Michelle Kitterman's death, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury would come back with a guilty verdict of first-degree premeditated murder and first-degree manslaughter of an unborn child.
Good.
Right. So just 2 weeks later, on November 23rd, 2010, Lacey will receive her sentencing by Douglas Supreme Court Judge John Hotchkiss to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She got what she needed. They should have threw some years though, but I guess life is good. Should have said 450 years or something high.
Yeah, you sit there and think about that, but gosh.
So Lacey is serving her sentence in Washington Correction Center for Women. In my research, I read that is also where Tansy Mathis is located. So now they can be best buds in prison together.
Yep.
No, you plotting there.
They're in the same prison?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Serving their time at the Washington Correction Center for Women.
There you go. You got a friend.
Right. But since her sentencing, Lacey has tried multiple times to get her convictions overturned, and all appeals have been denied for various reasons. But in researching also, ladies, I found that Lacey's mother wrote a book. Her name is Bonnie S. Hirst, and she wrote a book called Test of Faith, Surviving My Daughter's Life Sentence. I have never heard.
So now she's the victim.
Yeah, I guess so.
Girl.
Yeah, because
exactly
that's what it seems like. Test of faith, surviving. I mean, like, what are you surviving? Your daughter did an evil act.
Right. Sit in that. I mean, just be quiet.
But as far as Michelle's family, they are in a documentary called Snap, She Made Me Do It, which is where I got most of this information because details aren't too much available online. But I did find some court documents online, and I'll list all of that information if people want to know. But most of it came from Murderpedia, and I went to lawjusta.com, and I found spokesman.com and court.wa.gov. So y'all research her story because there's some details that I didn't include in here for her that just go deeper than this conversation we're having about her, because that doggone Lacey, y'all, she was evil. And I guess, money make you do things, or power make you do things. And I guess she thought she was going to get away with it.
I'm glad she didn't, though.
Right. I'm glad she got life. But her mom, from what I was reading, some of the summary, her mom just doesn't feel like her daughter was guilty. I gave y'all the book. So read the book if you want to know how she's surviving her daughter's life sentence.
Not a chance.
Book. Really interesting that she decided I thought the book was going to be My Daughter's Not Guilty or something.
Right.
And here she made the whole thing about her.
Yeah.
Surviving. Right.
Like, who are you? Like, okay.
And she's appeared on a podcast or two to talk about her story. So
her story. What story does she have?
I have never heard of that before. I don't know if there are other cases with parents saying how I survived my son killing multiple. I don't know. I just thought that was really odd. It's like, wow, she wrote a book and it's on Amazon.
I wonder if it's an angle of surviving she's in prison knowing that she's innocent, that she still thinks that she's innocent, or surviving, her being in prison and her child being a murderer,
Right. Like I guess basically how is she coping with it?
Yeah.
The mom's coping. I
Who
don't
cares?
know. Right.
Who cares like how you're coping with it? Like,
and can you believe though? I do believe it is people that are interested in her story.
I guess.
Like, why would you make that I just thought that was odd. Anyway, that's the case of Lacey Pavek, and if y'all wanna, well, let me say her whole name, Lacey Hirst-Pavek. Okay, so if y'all wanna, research her case in full detail, there's information out there, but I recommend watching the Snap show because that was pretty good. Okay, ladies, we're gonna move into our random wind down. Random wind down is a segment where we select random current events or things of our interest to have an open discussion and give our opinions. So, okay, sippers, I have 3 current events to unpack. So let me know what you think about each one in our comment section. Okay, ladies. So here we go. The first of the 3, I snagged this one from yahoo.com. A KFC employee saved the day over the weekend after calling police when a woman left a note begging for help. So according to court documents, on May 15th, the Memphis Police Department responded to a kidnapping/abduction call. Officers were told by an employee at KFC that a woman had left a note begging for help and gave a description of the woman and the man with her. The officers were able to make contact with Diego Glay and the woman who matched the description. So according to the records, Glay refused to obey officers' command and took off running. Okay, this man ran. Where you gonna
go? Okay.
He was later arrested. The victim told police that she was being held against her will with physical assaults, threats, and being armed with a handgun. Records showed. The victim also said she and Clay had been in a relationship. She told officers that the suspect had been physically abusive towards her by punching her in the face. And when she attempted to leave, he also took her phone and kept her from leaving his sight for days at a time. So according to the officials, the suspect said he and the victim had been living in a cheap random hotel around the city. He was doing court on May 17th, y'all. So I'll get a follow up, and see what happened with that. But his bond was set at $35,000. Diego, age 23, is charged with evading arrest and kidnapping after allegedly holding a woman against her will.
I want to say I've seen that story, but I didn't click on it to hear more of the details. It's good to hear it, though.
So good to that KFC employee. I just want to give big ups because most people like, do you see this now? He's getting involved. I'm glad he got involved.
Right.
He needed to get involved because that would have been me. I would have been snitching on everything. And he got a gray hair patch right there on the side of his left eye. I would have told it all. Man. So I'm glad that she was rescued and saved.
Right.
So here go our second current event that I found on Guardian.com. So ladies, we all know we're like on a sensitive situation when talking about someone's hair. And that can be a little touchy subject.
About somebody's hair?
Yes.
Right. Oh, okay.
When you talking about people's hair, the hairline and the patches you missing, folk get a little sensitive. So I found this article in a recent case in West Yorkshire. Calling a man bald is sex-related harassment.
I heard that.
Did y'all see that?
And I was just like, that is.
I've never heard that before.
That's crazy. Like, so, okay.
Yes, that was deemed by an employment tribunal. They ruled that calling a man bald is sex-related harassment. So hair loss is so much more prevalent among men than women. So using it to describe someone is a form of sex-related harassment, a judgment has concluded. Commenting on a man's baldness in the workplace is equivalent to remarking on the size of a woman's breast.
I mean, this man just wanted to be included so bad because I guess they got tired of being, like everything else was for women, and now it's like, I want it too. That's just a description.
Okay, yeah.
Isn't that part of like a description on like, we're looking for the suspect. He's 5'7",
right,
bald.
Yeah, so
light
now
complexion.
Exactly.
Like, we don't say, okay, we're looking for this lady. She has big boobs, a big old booty, you know, like stuff like that. It's you say you have brown hair, shoulder length hair, or, you know, that's crazy. Get out of here.
Right.
They want to be included so bad. Okay.
Exactly. So check this out. The ruling was made by a panel of 3 men who, in making their judgment, spoke on their lack of hair.
I was about to say, were they bald?
Right. So let me give a little background story. A veteran electrician named Tony Finn had worked for the West Yorkshire-based British Bond Company for almost 24 years. When he was fired in May of last year, he took the company to the tribunal, claiming, among other things, he had been the victim of sex-related harassment after an incident with the factory supervisor, Jamie King. Finn alleged that during a shop floor role in 2019, his supervisor had referred to him as a bald, C-U-N-T. I don't know if that.
No, that's, I mean, but the bald part.
Okay. So the tribunal heard Finn and was less upset about the language that was used, but he was more upset about being called bald.
So he was okay with being called the C word.
The C word, yes.
But not bald.
That's crazy.
Yes. So the allegation resulted in the panel, led by Judge Jonathan Bryan, deliberating on whether remarking on his baldness was simply insulting or actually harassment. So the tribunal therefore determined that by referring to the client as bald, C-U-N-T, Mr. King's conduct was unwanted. It was a violation of his dignity. It created an intimidating environment for him, and it was done on purpose, and it was related to the employee set. But I don't understand how that correlate.
Question. It's kind of on topic, but not really, but sort of.
Okay.
But, that C word is just a real weird word for me. Like, have you guys ever been called that or called somebody that ever?
No, but when you hear it, it sounds so strong, don't it?
Right. But yeah, I've never been called one.
Movies, I guess.
Like, I've never thought to call anyone that because it's just a weird word.
How prevalent
really
is it
our
used
language,
overseas?
Though.
That's true.
Right. Yeah, it's mostly used overseas because I know when I see it in like foreign
I hear
movies.
it here though. I hear it here a lot. Not really, you know, but it's just weird. It's just
it is weird.
Like if somebody called me that, I would be like so offended.
Right.
You would feel more offended by that than being called a bitch.
Right. And you know, like I would still be mad if somebody called me a bitch. I mean, like, I call my friends bitch. Hey, bitch, you know, like, but even like if you're calling somebody a C word to be mean, or I want to say that to like my friend, be like, hey, C, hey, what's up, C? You know, like.
Right. So, but he found more offensive.
I never thought about it like that.
But check this out. He found it more offensive to be called bald than the C word. So I thought that was kind of odd. I was like, you got more offended by bald?
I mean, especially because the C word that he's not.
If someone said you fat C word, is a person going to be more offended because they're being called fat? I mean, if you're bald, how you get offended by being called bald? Or if you're fat, then why are you offended because someone said you're fat? Like, why does that offend you more than the other word? I'm so confused as to why this person feels this way.
And then also being called a bald C, you are bald, but you're offended, but you're not a C. Clearly, you're not, you know, like what a definition of a C is. You're not that. So you should be like more offended because, like, for one, that's not what you are, but you are bald. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. But how do we get offended by being called the things that we actually are? Like, when do we get to that point?
Right. Well, let me tell you, I had to do some like research because I was curious as well. They said most men are offended by being called bald because they don't want to lose their hair.
But they don't have it there. It's not there. It's not there. It's just what it is. It's not there.
But in this case, unless I missed something, he actually is bald, though, right?
Yeah, he is bald. And he felt more offended by being called bald than the C word. So,
but I guess if men don't want to lose their hair and they don't want to be bald, but even if they are bald, it's almost like if I'm fat, I didn't want to be fat, but I am fat, but you're hurting my feelings by calling me fat, I guess.
So we got to act like we can't see it because you're
okay.
Yes, and he's obviously won. They're still waiting on his compensation to be determined.
He won. That's the crazy part about it. It's like, You won.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if that'll fly here in the US. I mean,
do they have a picture?
I don't know. I didn't see any photos of them, but
I was about to say we need to put it on our social media.
You know, if that kind of stuff happened over in the US, you know how many lawsuits there would be?
Right. Like that's just a basic description though. That's
right.
Just okay.
That's like
or just calling somebody a shorter man. I don't know. It's short, or tall.
Right.
Like I'm tall and you call me a tall man and I don't
but I just don't believe that will work for the US. Okay. So the lawsuits would be pending.
But I don't know the way this world is now. I mean, it just might,
Ooh, you might have a point, but I don't know. That'll be a lot of pending cases. So here's the third and last current event that I have, and I found this one on people.com.
Okay.
So, ladies and sippers, have you heard of the term or like cliche that says, beware of karma, or what goes around comes around?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So take a big sip of your beverage for this. Trenton, South Carolina man is dead after the sheriffs say he collapsed from a heart attack while digging a pit to bury his girlfriend after killing her.
Girl, how about I was like, I don't want to say cracking up, but like, dude, okay, that's what you get.
Yeah, that's your karma, right? Isn't that like what they say, what goes around comes around? Or beware what you put out to the university comes back to you? Okay, so
my only thing is, don't we all have to deal with karma? But anyway, go ahead and finish your story.
Yeah. Okay, listen to this one. So Joseph McKinnon told a neighbor that the hole he was creating in his yard was meant for a water feature to enhance his garden. So the Edgefield County Sheriff, Jody Rowland, told people.com that a different neighbor subsequently spotted McKinnon, age 60, laying face down and motionless beside the pit on Saturday morning. They called police. The police determined that Joseph apparently had a heart attack, but there was no trauma to his body. With no one else at the home, deputies set out to locate and alert McKinnon's next of kin. So Sheriff Rowland was quoted, "We had a hard time finding his significant other." So authorities searching for McKinnon's live-in girlfriend, Patricia Ruth Dent, age 65, tried reaching out to her workplace, her friends, and learning that her coworkers had been texting with no response since 7:30 that morning, which was extremely not like her. So deputies returned their focus back on the couple's residence. They continued to investigate the yard and the large garden. The house had been freshly cleaned, but they were able to identify blood in the house that tested as Patricia did. That finding led them back to the pit. As they got down in the pit, they found black garbage bags. They opened the bags to discover a body bound with tape. Forensics was called in to help conclude what they were thinking. Patricia had been hit in the face, but that was certainly not the death blow. The autopsy proved that she had died of strangulation. His autopsy proved that he died of a massive heart attack. The sheriff theorized that after killing Dent, Joseph McKinnon bound her with tape before wrapping her body in 2 large trash bags and dragging it out of the house to his truck, which he drove to his garden, where he previously dug the pit. The truck was still parked in the garden where deputies showed up. Apparently, Joseph had been covering the hole, but authorities concluded McKinnon had attacked, killed, and put Patricia Dent in the pit. He had died covering her up. Deputy Rowland says the incident registers as a very out of the ordinary and very unexpected. He knew no history of domestic abuse between the couple and said his department had logged no previous incidents or calls to the address, making this an open and shut case. So what do y'all think about that?
That's terrible. It's always the closest people to you, honestly.
Right. I wish what would make him
That's great, yeah.
Like kill her though? Why were you that mad? And then you digging up a grave for her in your garden and telling neighbors, "Oh, it's just a water system I'm about to put in." So
the fact that you died because it was so, I guess, strenuous on your body, or all that work that you did just to try to, I mean, I don't want to say that's what you get, but I'm not sad.
That's how I felt when I was
like, I'm not sad about hearing about what happened to him. Like, okay.
And they couldn't find no next of kin, and it was hard to find her. Well, you couldn't find her because he already buried her and put her in trash bags.
Yeah.
It's sad. Her family got to live without her because of him.
Yeah.
And then they have no reason. Like, there's no no conclusion to why or what would make him do that to her.
One thing about these cases, though, it reminds us all that it's always going to be the people closest to you. 9 times out of 10.
Or someone you just know of.
Offer somebody the right amount of money, or just let somebody get sick of you.
I know,
They're
right?
gonna be so ugly towards you, like tell all your secrets, kill you, murder you, set you up to be robbed.
Right. I just thought that was such a weird story. So I got to share this one. So that was our last and final current event. And Sippers, let us know what you think of all three. The baldness story, the man burying his girlfriend in the garden, and kudos to the KFC worker for calling,
that's right,
police for that girl. She needed to be rescued.
And let us know if you called anybody a C word.
Yeah,
just put it in the comments. If that's like one of some things that you say often.
Okay,
I just want to know, because I don't know anybody who uses that.
I don't know either. I just hear it like in movies and like TV series.
I've only heard it in movies, and every time I've heard it, I've always laughed. Like,
it's
funny to me.
Right. And the way they say it is with such strong.
It's so weird and so offensive.
Yeah, they say it harsh.
Of what you're actually calling me, but okay.
Right. So with that being said, and this episode is coming to an end. We hate to leave.
We gotta go, Sippers. But thank you guys for listening.
Right. And let us know what you think of today's episode about Lacey.
Yeah, the case and all that. These were good ones.
Oh. All right, Sippers, we're going to say goodbye to you now. We hate to leave, but guess what?
We gotta go.
We gotta go. Bye, ladies. Bye, Sippers.
Bye, ladies. Bye, Sippers.
Bye.